Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna. I'm actually gonna go down to this. Yeah, because I think I'm good on time. I'm gonna head down and start doing this. Yeah, so that's good up to there. So I'll do this. Yeah, so I've come to the realization because I've there are times where I will like check, like I will go back, I will check out games if I haven't played them in a while, and because like the idea is to play something people will enjoy, but not like something that people will like absolutely just not like and not have fun with. That's the general idea. However, because I've said in like a more recent one, I think like around like because again this is future me talking. I was playing through Devil May Cry just to like get a vibe for like, well, do I want to play this after playing Resident Evil? Well, playing Resident Evil 1 specifically. That would be a drowned. It sure is. And Devil May Cry 1, absolutely. It is still a beautiful and amazing game. And I love it almost unconditionally. However, there are certain things I said before that I don't agree with anymore. Like, I tried, because I went through, I beat, and like when I beat Devil May Cry 1, like on my personal profile, I was like, you know what, this game, great. I think people will enjoy it. It's fun. Did not get that vibe when I played Devil May Cry 2. It had been so absolutely long since I touched that game that I forgot all of the bad. And I didn't think that was possible. I had to play it in stints of like 4 missions. Like, I literally had to play it, take a break, play it, take a break. Which you should never have to do when you're playing a game. But the game just has such a negative effect on me when I play it because game design, not great. On top of game design not being great, you have many other things about the game that are also not great. Like, bosses are overly easy, but like there are basic enemies that have 5 health bars for no reason. The camera angles at times are awful and the game just suffers for it. There are times where you look at the camera angle. What is that music? I don't think I've ever heard that music in my life playing this game. However, it's Devil May Cry 2, like there are times where the enemies are infinitely spawning. It is the only game in the series that does that. And it is annoying as all hell, especially because it auto locks onto targets. It doesn't give you like the chance or opportunity to lock on yourself, which in and of itself is a huge problem. And there are a lot of times where you need to target like specific things to complete like a puzzle or like open a door or whatever. And enemies are attacking you from all sides and you can't put an end to them because there is no end to them. So it just makes everything a nightmare. And I don't think that would be fun to watch. There was one level that took me 20 minutes to get through, not because the level itself was hard, but because the level was so tedious. So I've decided that in place of like Devil May Cry 2, I'll just play Devil May Cry 3, because Devil May Cry 3 is a prequel. And honestly, I think that it fits better with Devil May Cry 1 as a pairing, because Devil May Cry 2 is the only game in the series, aside from the reboot, that has no connection to any other game in the series. And I found out why the other day. Well, today, not the other day. And the reason for it was crazy, because I thought Devil May Cry 2 had a similar situation to Devil May Cry 1. I thought that, like Devil May Cry 1, it was supposed to be a different game originally, and then they made it into what they could because they didn't meet the deadline. It turned out that was not true at all. The reason that Devil May Cry 2 is in such a bad state is because the person who originally made Devil May Cry and his team, Little Devils, were not associated at all with that project until like halfway through, because Capcom was trying to capitalize off the success of the first game. They started development on a second title before they were even done marketing the first game being sold in North America, which in and of itself is an issue. And apparently the person that they put on handling it had no idea what they were doing. He completely, apparently, just botched it. Yeah, I turned off griefing, bitch. Not gonna happen. But yeah, he had no idea what he was doing. He was way in over his head. And to this day, like, the people from Little Devils that had to go in and save that project, because it was apparently worse beforehand, which I don't know how that can be physically possible. They said it was a crisis situation when they entered in on it, because it was that far behind in its development stages. Capcom handed the game off to somebody from the Little Devils team because they were just like, and this person has a pre-existing relationship with this current development team that we have on the game, so it should work out. And they did what they could with the game, but there was so much of a stain on the game already, because the people who were making it had no clue what they were doing. The game was made in 4 months, which around that time doesn't seem bad, because games were made like that all the time back then. However, it is bad, because in a normal allotment of time that it would take a video game company to do whatever, they still could not get their shit together enough to actually make the game well. And to this day, they just won't say who the person was who screwed everything up, because the person like dipped from the project because Capcom was just like, we don't like your results, we don't like what's going on, we're just gonna give it to someone else. And that's crazy to me, because like, why would you defend that person? Like, that's the only thing I can think is, why would you defend that person? They clearly like had no idea what they were doing, and also no respect for your project, because they completely butchered it. And if you look at what they did in Devil May Cry 2, that's exactly what they did, was butcher it. They changed Dante's personality because the person who... one of the producers literally was just like, I hate that he's a cocky, joke-cracking hero. He needs to be more serious. Heroes need to be more serious. And it kind of put a stain on the series with Devil May Cry 2, because there's just this one game that makes no sense where Dante is overly serious for no reason. And they never really give much explanation as to why he's so serious. And that in and of itself is a big problem. I wish that it wasn't that bad, because Devil May Cry 2 could have been amazing if they had the original team working on it, because they understood the property they were working with because they created it. But for some reason, Capcom just completely went around behind them, like just right over their heads and behind their backs, to make this game, and it just went bad so quickly. And it's crazy to think about. Like, there are aspects of the game that could have worked and were fun, but then there are so many more bad ones that you're just like, ooh, why did I like this? Like, Dante's design, he might have like one of the best fits in the entire series in Devil May Cry 2. And it's actually the introduction of Rebellion as a sword. But at the same time, he's so solemn and overly serious, and that's just not who Dante is as a character. Like, he's silly. He's joking around constantly. He makes a joke out of enemies that eviscerate normal people for breakfast because he's not normal. And he has his reasons for why he jokes around as a character. And when we play, like, Devil May Cry 3, you'll learn a bit about that. But yeah, Devil May Cry 2 is a disaster of a game. It would not be fun to watch because the levels are so inconsistent in such a bad way. So I won't be playing it. Mainly because if it's not fun to watch and not fun to play, why would I play it? Because at some point, I want to play other Devil May Cry games. I will not play 2 on the channel. I'll play any other one. I will not play 2. I think I have to purchase 4 on console. Well, on this console anyway. Because I think I own it on a different one. So I just have to figure it out. However, it's just absolutely insane to me that something like that could happen, you know? It just does not track for me. That somebody could not only be super irresponsible with this product that's already made them so much money, but also just blatantly not care about it to such an extent that they want to just blatantly change the character for no reason. I just don't get that. Like, why would you want that? Like, there are so many ways that you could just make a good sequel, and you choose to make a game that is not only not good, but doesn't feel like a sequel. And that's crazy. There we go. Ooh. And yeah, I'd say I'm being like a bit too harsh on Devil May Cry 2, but I'm really not. Anybody who's played that game knows how bad it is, and I like don't need to explain myself on that one. So it's a whole thing. Because don't get me wrong, I like the way the dodge animations look. Like, I love like certain mechanics, like how mid-shoot Dante can like send a burst of fire like behind the back of his head, or like behind his hip towards like another enemy. Like, I think that's cool. But when the game itself is just so absolutely fucking miserable, why would you want to do any of those things? Like, you try to rush through the level and then it just hits you with the, oh, this is the one time you're not allowed to do that. I mean, when I was younger, I may have wanted to rush through games, but I'm not younger anymore, and I actually prefer playing through games now. So it's something I don't enjoy dealing with that. And like when the creator themselves has expressed sadness and like regret for the fact that the company didn't come to them because they know like how badly the company screwed up because they didn't come to them. It's crazy to me. And like I looked it up online and there were theories of people saying that like wow, the guy who screwed up must have been like somebody with an important position within Capcom and didn't say anything because they didn't want to ruin their career. And honestly, I'd have to agree. I think that's probably accurate. Because it's happened on other games before where like people have just like dipped at the last minute when they made a bad game and then a no-name person had to take the fall for it. I forget what game it was specifically that they used as an example within the forum I was reading. It's just weird. Yeah, I need to go back there. I don't have the time to search it out today. I'm gonna have to do the big sleep, and then look for coal on the next morrow. Yeah, Devil May Cry 3, I feel like is also just a more enjoyable game. I think that the character work in that game is great. And also, like, it's the introduction of Virgil. Dan Southworth as Virgil is amazing. And anybody who doesn't know who Dan Southworth is, because, like, he's a voice actor I know of only because I saw him on TV growing up in, like, a live action show. And there are two of these voice actors that were within, like, the same live action series, but in, like, different seasons as different, like, within different iterations of, like, the group. And, like, one of them is, like, is Dan Southworth, who has done plenty of voices and stuff, but including, like, a character in Devil May Cry 4. I think his name was Credo, or Credo, something like that. But, because it was, like, I think it was, like, Credo, or Credo and Kyrie were the brother and sister. But Dan Southworth is also known, weirdly enough, for his work as a Power Ranger, which is just crazy to me that there are people that I grew up watching on TV that then became voice actors and now I watch them again, or like I get to play as them in a game, which is just cool to me. The other is Johnny Young Bosch, which some of you might know as Vash the Stampede, or Jonathan Joestar, or Ichigo from Bleach, or Lelouch from Code Geass. he's been a part of so many iconic animes as iconic characters that it's hard to like bog him down to one role. But at the same time, I grew up knowing him as Adam Park, who was the second Mighty Morphin power, like second like Mighty Morphin Black Ranger. And like when I realized that, like you should have seen my face. Like I completely lost it. Like I might as well have been having a brain aneurysm. I was literally sitting there freaking out realizing this. And Johnny Young Bosch is and Dan Southworth are both like martial artists on top of being voice actors. And it's actually something that's pretty common with Power Rangers actors is they usually end up doing voiceover work or they end up doing work as how do I put it? They either end up doing voiceover work or doing like work as mocap people, like stuff like that, because they can do a lot of those maneuvers, like people who are like legitimately martial artists anyway. I know in the later series of Power Rangers, they did not have a lot of like actual martial artists playing the characters. And a lot of the times, like, they were just actors wearing the suits because they didn't have to do stuff like that outside of the suit. And most of it was just Japanese footage. So, like, in the beginning, it was like a pretty big thing, but after a certain point, they just didn't care anymore. Like, Jason Font is the mocap guy for Leon in Resident Evil 6. I knew him as the Time Force Red Ranger. So like it's crazy. Like it's crazy like the little things that you don't see that you can connect together. I really need to find more coal. Oh, hello. Ooh, hello, coal. Ooh, more coal. But yeah, I just think that's really cool. I think that the voice actor for Dante in Devil May Cry 3 is actually also his mocap guy. I could be wrong, but I think Ruben Langdon is that. I know he's Chris Redfield's mocap guy in Resident Evil 5 and 6, which is again weird. But Ruben Langdon's not a Power Ranger. He's just a guy that voices opinions and makes a lot of people angry. There are times when people should know, like, saying something is not okay, and he is not one of those people. Don't get me wrong, I can still separate the art from the artist there, because I still love Devil May Cry, I still love the character of Dante. Ruben Langdon as a character that, well, as like an individual, is somebody that I don't like a whole hell of a lot anymore. I just don't understand people's need to like go out in the world and start shit. It just does not make sense to me. Why would you want to start shit with other people for no reason? There we go. Perfect. Now, because I'm a sociopath, damn. Well, because I'm only a crack in this castle of glass. Okay. I do not like the way that looks. I'll find a different material to put in there. Not sure what yet, but I'll figure it out. However, I do like that. I do like that setup. Though the windows are a little, like, off. I put it on, like, a weird hillside, so I get it. I'll put the rest of this glass in here so I don't accidentally use it. Okay. Huh. Huh. Huh? Huh. He looked at me when I did that. He was not a fan of that. He knows I was mocking him. As for, like, other games I'll be playing to, like, mellow out and whatever, I still haven't figured that bit out. Mainly because I don't know what I would even play. Oh, I have more food in my house. But I could always steal more potatoes, and I will. I will cause the Great Famine. But, yeah, I haven't figured that bit out yet. I've toyed with the idea of, like, possibly playing around with, maybe doing, like, platformers or whatever to chill. I just picked up a poisonous potato. I'm not happy about that. Before they get replanted, I am to be fed. Don't look at me like that, you asshole. I need to eat. Stop looking at me. They're my potatoes. Mine. Okay. Huh. Yeah, I've thought about, like, doing platformers, like Crash or, like, Jak and Daxter, because I do own both trilogies. Well, I guess Crash is now, like, a quadrilogy, because it's got, like, 4 games. Damn, I got literally nowhere with goals today. Hit. What the hell? I have stairs. Why they not work? I'd be taking that glass. God, I have so much dirt in there. Put dirt in here now. I'll put the poisonous potato in here, and I'll just put the rest of the glass in there. Sleep through the night. Leave bed. Also, for me, as far as, like, Resident Evil goes, I'm, of course, like, I'm playing through, like, the first trilogy with, like, the final of the Raccoon City ones being Resident Evil 3. But I'm gonna wait to start filming that until I've gone through a bit of the Resident Evil 1 remake stuff being uploaded. Mainly because I have so many videos right now in the backlog that it is a problem. You mean to tell me if I had 26 potatoes, I could get an emerald from you, and then I could trade that emerald to get 6 loaves of bread? Not right now, but thank you, farmer. I will return. Um, but after that, I'll be doing like what I'm gonna call like the action trilogy, because that's what they are. I will be playing Resident Evil 4 Remake, but then I also want to play the original 4 just to like show people the contrast. So I might take a break after the original 4 and play something else, and then just play 5 and 6 back to back. I think that would be a good idea. I think it would be a good waste of time. Well, a good use of time. I don't know why I said waste of time. 4. I need more wood, actually. Trees prepare to be beaten. I don't... Not only do I not own Resident Evil 7 on PlayStation or Village on PlayStation, I don't want to play those games. And don't get me wrong, like I said before, I got a newfound respect for like Resident Evil 3 Remake and like the work the people did put in, but like I stated the issues I had with the game as it exists, even though I have respect for what they did with the 3 Remake. Because the 3 Remake is very clearly a transitional game. Like you can see mechanics in the 3 Remake that later are in the 4 Remake, but done better. And honestly, respect. But at the same time, I don't... Like, when it comes to, like, Resident Evil 3 Remake, I'm disappointed because I expected more. Whereas Resident Evil 7, when I try to play it, it just brings me no, like, actual happiness. And if you want to know what I mean by that, I'll say this. I've never played a first-person game that aims like you're in third person in my life until I played Resident Evil 7. It is very disorienting because it's like they went half in, half out. They weren't sure. It's like they weren't sure how they wanted the game to handle, so they just did something in the middle. And a lot of people might like that. Good for you. I hate it. I cannot stand that the game handles like that. It is just not enjoyable for me. And on top of that, the Winters story arc at the same time is like... Ethan Winters is such an uninteresting... Like, he's just not an interesting character. You could not give me money to make me care about Ethan Winters. Like, he gets respect for his ending in the story. Like, I will give him that. His ending is amazing. But him as a character, he is so bland. And just so many awfully delivered lines. Like, I can't stand this guy. He, like, don't get me wrong, Resident Evil 2 Remake, like, if you've watched that playthrough, there are times where Leon will give a line of dialogue and I will wince. Because I'm like, oh, that's awful. Like, that is just a bad line of dialogue they chose. And that happens sometimes. Like, that is just something that happens from time to time. I can live with that. What I don't like, however, is, like, I don't like when a character is that stupid. If that makes sense. Ethan Winters is a colossal dumbass at times. And that's just at the best of times. Like, he reacts to things Horribly. He has the worst reaction time out of any character in the series. And when he does react, it's so nonchalant and laid back, like he's a veteran of the series when he's clearly not. And it brings me actual anger. Like, he's just not a character that I think should have those traits, and yet he does. It's weird. And, like, I get what they were trying to do with... I get what they were trying to do with Resident Evil 7. They were trying to go back to the horror roots, like the whole cabin in the woods thing. Yeah, I get it. Like, mansion in the woods, cabin in the woods, house in the woods, whatever. I get it. However, bruh, you literally designed a game that did revive your series, but at the same time, you make a sequel that skips straight from the vibe of Resident Evil 1 to the vibe of Resident Evil 4, and it is fucking jarring. It is jarring. And everything I understand about that game is the fact that once you get past the castle, it just sort of stagnates. Which is a huge problem. Like, it is a huge glaring issue. Because that's the only reason anybody played it, was to get to the castle for Lady Dimitrescu. And then, like, the moment she's out of the picture and out of the story, nobody cares anymore. And it just creates a whole other issue of, like, keeping the interest of your audience. And, like, they added mercenary mode, of course. But in the same vein, even though Resident Evil 8 was, like, did sell pretty decently, it was mainly, like, what came after. Like, okay, yeah, that's not gonna cook. It was people realizing that the game did not have as much substance as they initially thought, and it just wasn't as fun to play as other games. And hell, like, it is so, like, I get, like, trying to get outside the box. Like, I understand that. The outside the box thinking for writing. I get it. Why did you go to mythical creatures? Like, you could have made up new types of enemies. Like, you could have even possibly based them off of those mythical types of creatures. But no, you just made vampires and werewolves and just went, yep, we're in a village. It just falls flat for me. It's not what I want from Resident Evil. I don't like that whole first-person era, and I hope they never do it again. Because if they can't figure out how to make your character aim down the sights of a gun, then I don't want to play the game. Like, at least with the third person, it's over the shoulder, and you have, like, a reticle that you can actually, like, hone in on and fire with, or a laser dot sight. Something. Anything. It's not like that in 7 and 8. Like, sure, you have the reticle, but it's like they zoomed in on a third-person perspective. And it just makes the game look worse, in my opinion. Like, that's not saying that the work they did in the game was bad, because there are things in the game that are great. The way they bring out horror in that game is really good. But to do what they did with the combat system in that game makes me sick to my stomach. Like, I can't play games where they can't decide if they want to be third person or first person. Like, And I don't mean like a game that'll like switch between third and first person. I mean like a game that'll incorporate factors of both into one gameplay. That's what I don't like. Because I can't play Fallout 3. I know it's a great game. Like, I know it has like probably one of the best stories in the series. However, I can't play it because you can't aim down the sights. And it is physically jarring for me. So I can't do it. And Resident Evil 7 is like that for me. I can play Resident Evil 6, like, it just has to be, like, spaced out. Because that game is so damn long. I just completed, like, playing couch co-op of that game with somebody else. Like, on my personal profile, not that long ago. Like, a few months ago. And I can tell you, for a fact, early Resident Evil games are like, the fuck was that? Early Resident Evil games, like, and I mean like around the time of 5 and 6, when you did co-op, for some reason, Capcom did this weird thing where they fucked up the split screen. And you're just like, why? Because they do like top and bottom split screen, but like, I think it's called horizontal split screen, but whatever. But the problem is the fact that they take huge chunks out of the screen on either side, and you can't see at all when you're playing couch co-op in that game. If you have it on PC, they apparently fixed that for PC players, but it's still bad for console players. Like, it's still like that. Resident Evil 6 especially is bad for that. Resident Evil 5, it's not as bad because the game's clunkier. There are less enemies to worry about. But when you play Resident Evil 6 co-op, you lose all hope. Like, you just get sad. Because if one of you survives, the other's gonna die and you're gonna have to restart anyways. And that's not even counting the other issues that there are within Resident Evil 6, because there are a lot. There are story issues, like, there are things that in that game could be saved, but weren't. Okay, I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do this. Perfect. Now, I can get to work. The game has, like, story issues, sure. Like, there are glaring story issues in that game. I will be the first person to tell you that. But for people to assume the game is just a bad game because it has story issues, like, if you want to say it's a bad game because it's nothing but QTEs, I would respect that opinion because it's kind of true. But why? Get away from me. Oh my god, please stop it. There are things about that game that are absolutely irredeemable. Like, the whole thing, like, at the last minute where they decide, oh, we're gonna do, like, really, really cheap stress by just making Jake all of a sudden care about this plot point that he said previously he didn't care about. And again, it makes no sense. It's dumb. It's handled poorly. And it makes the game suffer. So it's It's just something I don't get. Oh, God. Sorry. ADHD and probably some semblance of other. Leon is listed in Resident Evil 6 as like the first story. What is everybody gonna do when they see Leon is the first character that is listed? They're going to play as Leon. That is just going to happen. If there's something in human nature that if we see something put in like a perfect line on a list, oh, damn, I ran out of torches. I'll just keep that last one. I might use it for my house. Like there's literally just something about like if you see names, like if you see character campaigns listed, you're gonna pick the first one. Like 9 times out of 10, you will pick the first one, unless it's somebody who's in the minority of the situation who would just pick whoever they wanted to play as first. Leon's story in Resident Evil 6 gives the majority of the story. And then as you go down the list, it has less and less to do with the main plot. And is like a more sectionalized off to whoever. That's not good. It's just something I want to say. That's not good. Because Jake, like, if Jake and Sherry, if Resident Evil 6 was Jake and Sherry, and, like, it was just a story to flesh out that relationship, I would love the game unconditionally, no regrets. Because that's one of the things they did right. Jake and Sherry's relationship in Resident Evil 6 is amazing. And on top of that, like, Sherry Birkin as a character in Resident Evil 6, she is one of the best parts about that game. Getting to see somebody that you once saved come back and be a hero trying to save someone else. Like, that's crazy. And just so well put together. Like, the game has things that are good. It's just so overwhelmed by the bad that people can't see the good. And I think that that's a problem. But, like, Chris's story is just like an action campaign. But Chris isn't even the main character of that story. His partner is more of a main character than he is. Because his partner is the star of the show in that game. And if it wasn't for the ending of Chris's campaign, Chris's whole campaign would fall flat. And it's just sad to think about. Okay, what do I need? Well, I need more coal, because I need to make more torches so that my people can be safe. Well, sun's gonna go down. But yeah, as much as I love Resident Evil 6 does have its flaws. Hell, 5 has its flaws. And, like, you can't sit there and say 5's a perfect game, because it's not. Like, it has its issues. And yet, the game itself is iconic. It's a game that you can hop back into years after playing it, and it still feel just as fun and as comfortable of a game as it was when you first picked it up. And that's what makes that game beautiful. But then you've got other situations of like Resident Evil 6 where it feels abrasive every time you hop into it. I, I think I played through each story in that game when I was younger, probably like 5 or 6 times a piece. I loved that game's story. I loved that game because I loved Resident Evil and there hadn't been a new game in forever. So I was just willing to defend it and die on that hill. But it took a long time for me to be able to actually admit that the game had flaws, the game had issues, and people having been upset with the game was a very valid thing. It is night, though. It's about to be night. Let me sleep. Let me sleep. Go down, you bastard. Perfect. Yeah, I used to be the first person to defend that game, and now I will admit that I was wrong. Like, sure, the game itself isn't the worst thing Resident Evil has ever put out, but it gets a lot of flack because it was part of the main series. Like, if you'd ever played, like, Gun Survivor, oh, Gun Survivor was the first-person shooter Resident Evil game, and it suffered because it didn't have a plot. Like, the plot itself was, like, lackluster, and, like, they were trying to make off like they had this really amazing deep plot, and it wasn't. Like, it was literally just guy have amnesia, he bump head trying to stop bad guy, he think he bad guy, he not bad guy. That's the whole story of Gun Survivor. And like, the main character, Ark Thompson, literally has no story arc. Like, his whole story arc is finding out that he never had a story arc because he was never the villain to begin with. The villain died at the very beginning of the game, and he is not him. And, like, don't get me wrong, I played and beat that game. That game is not good. That game is not good. I can say that definitively and feel nothing. There are other games in the Gun Survivor sub-series as well. Like, you have, of course, Gun Survivor, which is the first one. You have Dead Aim, which is like a weird hybrid where your character's in third person, but you... like, your character's in third person, but you aim in first. Like, it's bad. It's really bad. You know? Mine. And I just don't get it. Oh no. I love Diorite. But not just that, like, there are plenty of stinkers in Resident Evil's, like, whole series. And I actually found out today that they actually have more failures than they have successes in their series, and the only reason we don't, like, think about that is because the ones that were so good were usually mainline games, so we never questioned the bad ones that were, like, off on the sidelines, because they usually didn't affect us. Which is pretty true, I think. Like, I just don't... there are certain games that get a lot of flack that I think don't deserve it, because I think that they're really good games, and if they got remade today, I think they would do a lot better. because Capcom has been killing it with the remakes recently. And honestly, if they were to do like Gun Survivor, but they like give it a different name and like just actually give it a story based in the original, I'd have no issue with that. Like, that's perfectly fine. Like, fix the game's story, like, give the character some substance, and now we have another survival horror Resident Evil game to play? Hell yeah. Give me that. But do it after you do Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. Only do the side games once you've remade all of the mainline ones. Because Resident Evil 6 definitely has stuff that needs fixed. Resident Evil 5 definitely has stuff that needs fixed. If you can give those games the treatment you gave 4, then we will be better off. For sure. And 7 years ago. Like Resident Evil Outbreak, like that game's great. It was the first attempt Capcom ever had at making a multiplayer game. Ow. And because it was like their first shot, they had all kinds of issues with servers and stuff because it wasn't a normal thing for console, and they were trying to change that. And the servers would constantly crash, like things just wouldn't line up super well sometimes. But as a PS2 game, it's great. Like, you just have multiple different scenarios based on things from Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 2. You go through as these normal civilians with different abilities and things they can do. And it's great because you get to go through these scenarios as these characters, see what will happen, and see what you can do with it. And it's a great time. However, like, if they were to do that, they would definitely need to work on it a bit. I think going through each scenario with like different characters, I think would be cool. But at the same time, I think a better way to do it and a way to fix it would maybe just be to like have it so that your scenario works with just like normally it's one person, but if you want to jump in as another survivor, you can at any time in this, like in any scenario. Like, I think that that's a better way to do it because it gives you more chance to explore these unique characters and their abilities and like the stuff they start with, all that. I think that that would be a cool way to do it. And honestly, great time. Because you got different people who can do different things. Like, you got the reporter who can pick locks. You've got Kevin, who's a police officer and like starts with a better handgun with higher caliber ammo. You've got David, who's I believe he's like a handyman. He can like build things with resources, which is really cool. You've got George, who's a doctor. He's the one who has the ability to combine herbs. So on and so forth. And it's just a good time. And I think if we had an updated version of that game, it would be a great time. I think everybody would love it. And I would love to play that game remade and play it on the channel. I think that people would love it. I think people would have a lot of fun with it. All right, let me get out of this hole. Because for today, our time is coming to an end. Mainly because I enjoy doing these vibe sessions so much that I forget to pay attention to the time. And I've almost capped out the amount of time I'm allowed to record on PlayStation per video. Because I'm about to peak at an hour. But, guys, until next time, I've been Violet. Thanks for sitting here and listening to me just go on and on and on. And come back anytime. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.